Hey guys, welcome back to Heiko's Garage. Today I have a really exciting little upgrade for my 2017 Nissan Frontier, which you probably will also like. It's a larger throttle body. A lot of people might now say, oh yeah, if you don't have a free-flowing exhaust and an aftermarket intake and a better cam and all that stuff, a throttle body is not going to do anything. But I think I beg to differ. Hey guys, here's Heiko in the future. This is a few weeks after the install, and I just wanted to point out to you guys, you don't have to watch the entire video and be annoyed about my rambling process, but rather look at the chapter markers. So I put timestamps in when things happen. So the install, the first run, the 0 to 60 times, and I have a couple technical comments at the end. So if you just want to skip the entire install and go to the technical comments and the final thoughts on this product, just go to the chapter marker, okay? Because in a stock intake system of this 4-liter V6, the throttle body is actually the most restrictive to flow than anything else in this entire setup. It's a 75 millimeter throttle body currently, and we're increasing this to 85. I also have a OBD2 scanner that can do live data while I'm driving, and I've found out that when you go full throttle on this 4-liter V6, it really only opens the throttle to about 85, 89%. So it never opens all the way. And then if you look at a throttle body, you will also notice that there is a the throttle butterfly and the shaft that the throttle butterfly is mounted to right in the middle of the opening. And so that's the most restrictive place in this entire setup. So let's look at the box that I got from Z1 Off-Road. Those guys came up with this kit. It is designed to be used with an aftermarket intake, which I don't have. I have the stock airbox and all that. But I'm going to try to make this work with a stock intake, and that's pretty much why I'm showing this. There are a lot of guys driving around that don't want to spend $300-400 on an intake system. They want to keep the stock airbox, but maybe they want to do this $295, $280. I put the price somewhere now on the screen. So here is a throttle body. So let me get a little closer here. This is the aftermarket throttle body. It's made by Hitachi, which is the brand that also makes the stock throttle body. So here, this is the throttle butterfly, and you can see the shaft there in the middle. So you will always have a restriction to flow due to obstacles in the middle of the throttle body. So this kit now increases the diameter from 75 to 85, at least external diameter. This is external 85. The old one is 75. And nothing else changes. There's no tuning involved. There is no different angles or manipulations to the ECU. We're not installing a pedal commander or like a pedal tuning box, which supposedly increases the reaction time of the throttle, so the throttle opens faster. Here in this case, we're just opening up the diameter a little bit, and so they made a whole kit which includes this larger throttle body. Then we have a billet aluminum spacer. The reason why they have to make this spacer or put the spacer in between is the diameter of this throttle body is larger, and therefore the bolt pattern is larger, and they make this adapter here, adapter Rooney, to adapt the new bolt pattern to the old bolt pattern. So this is pretty much just an adapter to make this all fit. Gaskets are included. Some hardware is included that you will need to put this all together. And then there's also a extension, or I should say, to go from the stock connector to the throttle body connector, or maybe this is the side for the stock connector and this is for the throttle body. We'll see. Right now, what I'm planning on doing right now is not to rip the old one out yet, but to rather find out if it actually fits. So let me take this all of my hood here. And then we're gonna dig in and see. Oh yeah, there's also a silicone connector that will go between the throttle body and the aftermarket intake. So this might not fit exactly, but I've already ordered a couple different size silicone hose tube connectors to make this all fit. All right, here we go. All out of the way. Pop the hood open, and then I'm gonna get you guys a little closer and we're gonna take a look at it. Pretty dirty, it's winter. So let's move you guys in a little bit here. So there we go. So here's the stock throttle body. And like I said, the bolt pattern of the new one is a little larger, so we have to put a spacer in between here. And then, of course, that moves the throttle body closer to the intake tube. And the intake here on this vehicle is bolted down. On an aftermarket, you have more flexibility. So we'll have to see if this all works out. Let's take it apart. 8mm. So we're just going to take the hose clamps loose. And then I'm going to take those two bolts loose that hold the whole intake part here in place. And then we can swing this all out of the way. So we just need to loosen this up. Those hose clamps you have to remove when you install this new throttle body. They don't give you new ones. So let's see, that's 10, I'm pretty sure. Up here, those two come out. That just takes a little cover off. You guys remember I put an intake spacer into this engine here. I made a couple adapters and moved a few things around to be able to install this all just like stock. It just brings the whole intake up a little bit. All right, I don't know where we were when we were just so rudely interrupted by the phone, but here, let's zoom in a little bit. So I already took the two hose clamps loose and the two bolts that hold this engine cover on. And now we should be able to just lift this off, I think. If I remember correctly, yep. It's not one of those easily removable ones, but at least 2 screws later. So now we can take the 10mm socket and take the two bolts loose that hold this whole contraption in place. So if I would have to modify this mounting bracket to move this out a little bit more, I think I would do that just to make this throttle body kit work. So let's see if this works out. I'm kind of excited about it because, you know, when you have a vehicle that has drive-by-wire, which this is, the ECU controls how fast and how far your throttle opens. And like I said, on my OBD2 scanner, I found out that this only goes into the low 80% opening when you really nail it, when you really do full throttle. And it would be nice if the new throttle body, since it's a little larger, kind of gives it a little bit more oomph. And from what I read on the Z1 Off-Road page, it sounds like it's supposed to do that. I just don't want to spend the 300 some bucks to put a aftermarket intake on there. So now I'm just going to put, no, actually I can't. So what you need to do is you're going to remove the 4 bolts, and then those 4 bolts are used to put the spacer onto the new throttle body, with, of course, with a new gasket. But I just want to see if I move this out this far, sticks out about maybe 3/8 or ½ inch. And I want to see, here, I'm going to take, let's put this, oh no, maybe not on there, but over here. And I'm going to take this rubber, the original rubber boot off of here, so that we see the distances and if there is enough space. So I'm going to put the 2 bolts that hold this whole contraption in place back in here. If I can get it going here. I just want to see how much space there is, how much wiggle room we have. Okay, so just loosely by hand. So you can see there's about ½ inch, roughly, maybe a little less than that There is not much play in there. Once the screws are in, you only have a little bit of play. And now we can take this throttle body, hold the spacer in place. I'm not sure which direction it's going to be mounted. It doesn't matter. And we're just going to place this in between. And now we see that this edge and this edge is really close together. Here, let me bring you in a little bit closer. Okay, let's do this again. A little closer. So spacer on here. Spacer up against the plastic intake. And now we can see that this and this is really close to each other and we don't have much wiggle room. But what we can do, or what I can do, is modify this metal bracket. So when you have the hardware out, this metal bracket itself is also only bolted on with another 10mm head bolts, and it's holding also this hose here. There's a steel line going under there, but we could modify this. Or we could just not bolt it on. It wouldn't be the end of the world, and that gives us more wiggle room here on this end. And then we might have to take this loose to you know, push this maybe this way a little bit more. So here, let's zoom out a little bit. So this whole contraption here, if we don't bolt it on, or maybe only bolt it on with one screw to make it more movable. And then we can slide this on maybe a little bit more. Yeah, let's see what kind of movement we get out of this. So now we can take those two clamps loose. Right? And then maybe that gives us a little bit more manipulation room. So it's really not the end of the world if those two screws are not in there. You have plenty of movement here. So theoretically, if we put those pieces here, we have enough space. All right, so that was step one, verification of if this will fit. So now I'm going to get my calipers real quick, and we're going to measure some diameters here, because I want to find out what the actual diameter is of this intake tube here, the plastic part. And then I already know that this is 85mm, and I don't know what this is. And then I want to get a silicone coupler that fits on here and fits on here nicely. So let's do that real quick. So once again, to reiterate, this one here is now about 85mm OD and about 80 ID internal diameter. And the old one was 80 on the outside and 75 on the inside. So we're gaining about 5mm in total diameter. And they said that it doesn't need to be, it's no change other than the diameter, pretty much. So we're just opening up this opening a little bit, making it larger. And as you can see, the tube is actually bigger than the throttle body itself. Also, the intake over here is larger in diameter than this little intake. So we're taking out the restriction, so to speak.
Many hours later.
And we're not going to get around spilling some coolant because this hose here literally gets replaced. So it really just pinching it off a little bit, and then this one here as well. So if you work on cars often and you have to take those permanent pressure hose clamps, in German they are called Federbandschelle. If you need to take those off, buy yourself this Knipex pair of pliers. That's the part number, made in Germany. They have specific jaws to just grab onto those, and then you can move them out of the way. And they're literally just like channel locks almost. So you can change the size and whatnot. But very easy to use. They don't slip off those clamps. Makes it very quick and easy to take those off. And then additionally you need those. They come from Harbor Freight. They're to make it easier to take hoses off of a hose barb. So you just reach around the hose, grab it, and then you can jiggle the hose loose while you're pushing it off. But we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to take everything else loose. So here's the connector back here that has to come off somehow. All makes cracking noises. There you go. So this is where the little adapter is going to go on. It's only 4 bolts. Should be fairly easy to get those loose. Oh, yeah, there you go. 1. Yep. Here you can see the seal or the gasket sticking out. We're going to replace that with the new. The kit comes with one. And then the next few days, when I get the final proper fitting silicone coupler, I will replace the one that came with the kit with one that fits a little better. A little snugger. All right, that's one. There you go. Okay. So before I take this completely off, we're now going to pull the hose off, or the tube, making a mess down here. But it's just coolant, a little bit of coolant. There comes the hose. Oh, no fluid coming out at all, that's good. So one is off, and now we're going to pull the second one off, if I can reach it. Nope. Well, maybe we just have to hold on to the thing. You know what? If I maybe take the screws out. So maybe now we can grab it. So this hose here gets reused even with a new throttle body. Okay, coolant hoses are all off, and we have the throttle body in our hands. Here, let's make a quick size comparison. So now you can see clearly the size difference. Supposedly same brand. What's the brand on here? Doesn't say. A couple numbers on here, but that's pretty much it. Z1 Off-Road says that this is same brand as the OEM. Hitachi makes this one here. All right, there we go. I'll put the throttle bodies away for now, clean this up, put a new gasket in it. All right, so here we go. Let's just clean up a little bit. That dog will just not stop barking. They leave the dog in the backyard all day. It's a livestock guard dog, even though they have only ½ acre and no livestock. And never walk him, never seen this dog outside of their backyard. It's kind of sad for the dog, I guess. Look at all the dirt. This is WD-40, which I found is actually pretty good in removing gunk. So here in this little intake diffuser, whatever it is, with that little grit pattern in there. I don't know if you guys can see in there. Yeah, let me give you a quick look in there. There's lots of black stuff, I guess from years and years of sucking air in. And so then people think, oh yeah, I have an air filter, no dirt gets in. That's not correct. Every filter always has a filter rating, usually expressed in microns, and those air filters still let stuff through. And then maybe you switch with a more, well, I should say a less restrictive air filter, like a K&N oiled air filter. They let even more gunk through. Oh, it's pretty gunky. So now we're just going to take the old gasket out. Old. They were fine. You could probably reuse it, but since the kit comes with one, it's better to put a new one in there. Okay, that's clean enough. It's just going to get dirty again, and then we're going to put that one in here. So let's not mix the old and the new one up. So then you have to grab this little spacer that comes with the kit, and that gets bolted on, I want to say this way. These extra holes over here, they are for if you have a Z1 off-road catch can, you can bolt that on there. I don't have that. Maybe I should. The catch can is for your crankcase ventilation. So fumes from your crankcase get rerouted back into your intake and then introduced into the combustion. Oh, there are 6 screws in here. We only need 2, so I'm assuming these here are for the application if you have the catch can installed. At least they mention that in the manual. They only have online manuals. It's like you scan a QR code. I wonder if I should maybe, before we put this on, take the hose off and put the new hose on there. That's probably a good idea. So let's just take this out of the way here. It's not really needed. There's no coolant coming out. And then we're gonna grab that hose clamp down here. Oh, yeah, that screw's gone. I can see it. It's sitting on the frame down there. That's good. So I guess I have to get a magnet. That's why I was saying I should probably get a little magnet tray to not lose anything, but I'm always too lazy. Yeah, that dog just never shuts up. It's non-stop all day. If I'm not out here, of course, I don't notice it. But maybe it's a cry for help. And now my hose grippy. Where is it? Smaller one. My hose grippy pliers. Oh, sitting right in front of me. All right, so we just need to jiggle that off and put the replacement. Yeah, you just break it loose like this, and then you stop pulling on it. Those pliers are really inexpensive, Harbor Freight quality, but they have made my life so much easier. And you can actually get a hose off without ripping it all to shreds and cutting it open. All right, here we go. So in all the hose clamps you have to reuse. So we just use our fancy hose clamp pliers, pull those off. I really like, this is not cheap. This is German made. On Amazon it's like 40 bucks or so. But man, does that make life easy. So you don't need this anymore. And the replacement is just a straight, I think this is a silicone hose, Z1 Off-Road. So we're just gonna slap a hose clamp back on there. On one end. Oh, I guess the hose in diameter is a little larger. So we'll see if we can get the hose clamp over. Oh, it's pretty tight. Uh-huh. What were they thinking? Yeah, that's not working. Might have to find different hose clamp. I like the permanent pressure ones because they keep tension on the hose, but it doesn't look like it's gonna do it. Not a big fan of doing this, but I might have to give Z1 Off-Road some feedback about it. That these hose clamps don't fit this massive thick. You just can't get it pinched down enough to, you know. I've already grabbed a different type of plier just to see how far I can squeeze this together. And it's really tight, so I'm not going to use it. So now I have just two regular, you know, cheapo 14 to 16 millimeter slides right over. So we're gonna make it so that I can actually reach it like that. And the hose goes on really easily. And then the hose clamp over. And that is probably some small metric size. Oops. Let's see what size this is. It's a 7. And then we're just gonna snug this up so we don't forget. Okay, so now we have the hose in place. Now we can put this thing on here. So gasket is in place. So the bolts that come with the kit, is that the same? Yeah, it's the same. Stainless steel hardware, I like it. You could potentially put some anti-seize on there. One. Two. Of course, they don't have a torque spec for this. Doesn't matter. We're just gonna do Guten tight because it's a throttle body. It's not a structural piece of you know, snug it up, squeeze the silicone gasket together. Maybe I need to take this loose again a little bit so we're not pulling it on that crooked. And then we can put my little, okay, here we go. All right, now we're gonna grab the new throttle body, put it here somewhere. So there is a second gasket that now goes in here. So here's the throttle body. Second gasket over here. Goes right in here, just like the stock. And now I have to get a magnet to get that screw.
Hey guys, just a quick side note here. As we are installing the throttle body in this video right now, I've run into some issues. So once you're done with the install, and it doesn't matter if you're using your stock airbox like I do, or you actually have an aftermarket airbox that is more or less, the kit is designed for an aftermarket airbox and an aftermarket, like a cold air intake. Once you're done with the physical install, they ask you in the installation procedure to do 3 relearning procedures, which is the throttle body closed position learning procedure, the idle air volume learning procedure, and the, what is it called? Accelerator pedal release position learning procedure. After now me being done with the install, I occasionally get a check engine light with a failure code of P0101, which points you towards the mass airflow sensor, which is installed in your air intake. I have since already replaced the mass airflow sensor with a brand new NGK branded mass airflow sensor, but I keep getting the same failure code. And so then I got in touch with Z1 Off-Road, with their support department, and asked them for help. And they again and again and again remind me to do all the 3 relearn procedures, which all can be done without a proper scan tool. There are some, you know, procedures where you have to turn the ignition on and then turn it off and then turn it back on and turn it off, and then, you know, do a few things and jump through a few hoops to do the relearn procedure, those 3 different ones for your ECU. And one of the more important ones is the idle air relearn procedure, which I actually do with a scan tool. I have a Bluetooth OBD2 scanner that has those functions so that I can do the idle air relearn procedure. But I still keep getting the P0101 failure code, even though I have already changed to a new mass airflow sensor. And so Z1 Off-Road is hinting at it could be because I damaged the throttle body. And if you install the throttle body, the one from your brand new kit, and you leave a fingerprint on the brass throttle butterfly in the throttle body, apparently Hitachi will not warranty this throttle body. So if you are installing this, do not, I say it again, do not touch the throttle butterfly, the brass part on the inside of the throttle body. Do not leave a fingerprint on there. You can't, it's really hard to clean off. I tried it. Don't touch it. Or else, if you have technical problems after the install, Z1 Off-Road will not warranty this, or they say that Hitachi will not warranty it. They will offer you a new throttle body at a reduced rate. I don't know what that rate is. I don't know what that price is. You can find the same throttle body online if you just look at the part number on the actual throttle body and do a Google search. You can find it at other places. I don't know what a Z1 Off-Road would charge me, but I haven't given up yet. So I routinely, like every couple days, do the relearn procedures for the release position, you know, the idle air relearning, those three that I just mentioned. Just make sure you do not touch the throttle butterfly. So if there is any kind of warranty claim that goes to Hitachi, they will not cause any problems. And if you actually have problems with this kit, then Z1 Off-Road will honor their warranty and potentially give you a new one. Okay? Don't touch it. All right, let's get back to the video.
Here is Thread Magic Anti-Seize. It's a stick that you can use for spark plugs. We're just going to put a little bit on here because these are steel screws going into an aluminum spacer, and that can cause corrosion, and then you never get them out again. And so just a little bit, you know, precaution, just rub it on. This product is not the best. If that gets warm, it immediately deforms and turns into mush. So it's not great. All right, and then it goes on here. So let's get maybe 2 screws stuck through here. Like that. You can also put a little silicone on the new gasket if you like. Silicone grease. Where's the hole? Put safety glasses on for the bench grinder, but can't see nothing. Oh, here we go, down there. So it's a little bit at an angle, I think. Mine. And then one down there. Gotta wiggle a little bit here. So now we have all 4 screws in there. Don't want to overdo it with the tightening. It's going into aluminum, don't forget. Don't want to strip nothing here. Okay, I think that's good. Okay. So now I'm going to find us the remainder of the parts. There is, oh no, we already got it at the car. The little connector. Then we have to put 2, here's the little connector thing, which goes on the stock thing down here. Only fits in one direction. And then just push that on there. There you go, clip. And then the other end fits on the throttle body. And then we just need to make sure it's not in the way of anything spinning. Kind of like that. All right, and then the two hoses here. So it doesn't really matter in which orientation you put those on. Let's see, which way do we want this? Because it's just flowing coolant through the throttle body is what that does. So kind of like that, probably, good idea. It's kind of out of the way. And then the other one, let's see if we can. Oh, yeah, we can probably take the vice grip off of it now. There we go. Didn't really need it. But you guys see that a little better. So that on there. Luckily it's all pretty flexible down here. And then we're just going to slide the okay, shouldn't be in the way of anything. And then this is a 7. Yeah, there's a really nice large hose bob on both sides, like a little thicker end, so this will not come off as long as you pinch it shut. And that looks pretty good. And now let's find this coupler. So as I mentioned, this is not a perfect fit. We're going to put the smaller end on the intake tube and the bigger end on the throttle body. Let's see. Hose clamp. I hope they're big enough. Just bought them yesterday. Oh yeah. They're massive. They're maybe a little long. They go from 2.5 to 4 inches. That looks like maybe a 9mm or an 8. Yeah, all right. Okay, let's put it so we can reach it. Must be more than one dog. They're having a conversation there across the fence. So that's pretty good. It pinches it together pretty nicely. Just got to make sure we have it nicely around the thing. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Snug. All right, and now we just need to somehow is the radiator cap is in the way. Let's see if that helps. No. Oh, that's great. Yeah. take this loose nicely, and then just slide it out, and then move this around. Oh yeah, we need to put a hose clamp on there before we stick it in, like so. And then we can massage that in there. Yeah, we definitely need a coupler that's a little more snug. All right, let's tighten this up a little bit. I'll move you guys a little out of the way now. I'm gonna stick that back in here. And then put my air filter cover back on here. Yeah, so far, so good. And then remember, an aftermarket intake would also not be connected here. This is really solid enough to drive around on a daily basis. But I would probably prefer to put a little bit of metal on there. I'll take that bracket out and weld a little bit and then drill some holes. Okay, let's look at the... All right, so we have done what? We have done taken that off, taken the connector off, the coolant lines, put a new gasket in, installed the spacer, put the throttle body on, put the electrical connector on, replace the hoses. Yeah, new coolant hose. Yeah, we did that correctly. And then put the little spacer thing on there. Like I said, we used it completely in the wrong way, but I think for test purposes, it's gonna work. And then they have a relearning procedure blog post. And we're gonna open that. Nissan throttle body relearn procedure. After servicing the throttle body, blah, 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 blah. In the blog, we will cover the 3 procedures. We will cover the 3 procedures and the different methods that can be used for each. Yes. Alrighty guys, so I noticed during editing this video that I never really recorded the 3 relearned procedures, and I am planning on doing this with you guys now. I know this makes the video even longer, but I think this is a very vital, important part of this install of this throttle body kit. So there are 3 relearn procedures that you have to do. The first one is the accelerator pedal released position learning. The second one is the throttle valve closed position learning. And then the last one is the idle air volume learning. And you have to do all 3. So the first one, pretty simple. It is really, it doesn't matter if the engine is warm, cold, whatever. Engine needs to be off and your foot needs to be off your accelerator pedal. Here it says accelerator pedal release position learning is an operation to learn the fully released position of the accelerator pedal by monitoring the accelerator pedal position sensor output signal. It must be performed each time the harness connector of the accelerator pedal position sensor or ECM is disconnected. How you do this is you check that the accelerator pedal is fully released. Since I don't have my foot on it, it's fully released. Turn the ignition switch on for 2 seconds, then turn it off for 10 seconds, then turn it on for 2 seconds, and then turn it off for 10 seconds. And that is the entire procedure. We're going to do this right now, and I'm always going to count 2 seconds and then 10 seconds and then 2 seconds and then 10 seconds, okay? So key in the ignition. First thing is turn it on, wait at least 2 seconds, okay? And then after that, turn it off and wait at least 10 seconds. And then turn it on again, wait at least 2 seconds, and then turn it off again and wait at least 10 seconds. We're going to do that right now. Turning on to the on position. 1,000, 2, 1,000. At least 2 seconds. Turn it off. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000, 8, 1,000, 9, 1,000, 10. Turn it back on. 1 1000, 2 1000. At least 2 seconds. Turn it off. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000, 8 1000, 9 1000, 10. That's at least 10 seconds, so we should be good. That is the manual procedure to do the accelerator pedal release position learning. Okay? The next one is the throttle valve close position learning. Throttle valve close position learning is a function of the ECM to learn the fully closed position of the throttle valve by monitoring the throttle position sensor output signal. It must be performed each time the harness connector of the electronic throttle control actuator or ECM is disconnected or the electronic throttle control actuator inside is cleaned. So, how we do this? There is only a manual procedure for this. You have to start with a cold engine. 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit or less before engine start. Then you start up your engine, warm up the engine to raise the engine coolant temperature until it reaches 65 degrees Celsius or 149 degrees Fahrenheit or more. And then turn the ignition switch off and wait at least 10 seconds. Check that the throttle valve moves during the above 10 seconds by confirming the operating sound. And yeah, that's pretty easy. We will start up the engine, let it warm up, and I will put a second camera inside the engine bay pointing at the throttle body. And when I turn the engine off, you will hear the throttle body make some noises. That is pretty much what they're looking for. This is pretty much the throttle valve close position learning. Okay, so pretty much the first part is just start the engine up in cold position or cold engine coolant. That's the case. We're starting it up now and we're just going to let it idle until we reach 65 degrees Celsius or 149 Fahrenheit. And I have a OBD2 scanner plugged in down here with a little extension that always just sits there. I'm going to go into an app called Torque, and on Torque I have real-time information readout, and one of them is the coolant temperature. Once it connects. So right now we're at 40 degrees C and we need to, what did I say? We need to get to 65 degrees C. So I'll cut this short for you guys. Once I have a coolant temperature of 65 degrees C, I will get back and then we're going to turn off and film and record the noise of the throttle body. Okay. So this is going to take a little while. Alrighty guys. So on my little OBD2 scan app here, Torque, I'm using a Elm 327 Bluetooth OBD2 reader. I will put a link down below to one that actually works. And yeah, this app Torque, I think it is available on iOS and also on Android. This is the Android phone, and it gives you live data readout. And here right now it says 67 degrees Celsius coolant temperature. The instruction that I had open here from Z1 Off-Road says 65, so we're well in the range now. Now I'm going to set up this phone as a second camera angle to be very close to the throttle body. And then we're going to turn the engine off and have this camera record the noises of the throttle body. And that's what we're looking for, okay? So let's do that real quick. I already have the hood open.
5 minutes later.
So it took me a little while. Camera is set up, pointing straight at the throttle body. We are at the required temperature, and now I'm just going to grab my key and turn it off. And then you're supposed to wait 10 seconds, and within the 10 seconds, it's supposed to give you the throttle body movement noise. Pretty sure that has happened. Oh, and one last thing. In this video clip of the throttle body, you will see that I have already installed a aftermarket silicone coupler, which is not installed yet in the current video. Okay, so now we're going back to the instructions. So we just did the second procedure, the throttle valve close position learning, which the machine here does automatically. And now the last thing we need to do is the idle air volume learning. So let's drive around a little bit to warm up the transmission. Alrighty guys, so I did some driving around the neighborhood to warm up the engine, obviously properly, and also to warm up the transmission. We have 80 degrees Celsius right now, coolant temperature. And now let's go over that last procedure, which is the idle air volume learning. And I already went through the conditions. If the idle speed or the timing is out of spec, which let's just do it, and we assume that there's something out of whack. Before performing the idle air volume learning, check that all of the following conditions are satisfied. Battery voltage, coolant temperature between 70 and 100 degrees Celsius, transmission in park, all the electrical consumers off, including the stereo, the air conditioning, and the headlights. Steering wheel is neutral and straight ahead, and vehicle is stopped, and the transmission is warmed up. And then, of course, they would tell you to use the Elite scan tool that they sell, but there is also a manual procedure. So, manual procedure, complete accelerator pedal release position learning. We did that. Complete throttle valve close position learning. That was the one where we were just looking for the noise in the engine compartment. Start the engine and warm it up to normal operating temperature. We just did that. Check that all items listed above are met. We just did that. Turn the ignition switch off and wait at least 10 seconds. All right. While we wait at least 10 seconds, confirm that the accelerator pedal is fully released. Then turn the ignition switch on, wait 3 seconds. Then repeat the following procedure quickly 5 times within 5 seconds. Fully depress the accelerator pedal, fully release the accelerator pedal. Then wait 7 seconds and then fully depress the accelerator pedal approximately 20 seconds until the stops blinking and turns on. So the check engine light, I don't know what MIL stands for, but they are talking about the check engine light, which is right here in the middle of my dash. I don't know if you're going to see it on camera, but I'll try my very best. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit. So you're going to see that blinking while I'm holding the pedal down for about 20 seconds, and we're supposed to hold the pedal down until it stops blinking and turns on. And then fully release the accelerator pedal within 3 seconds of MIL turns on. And then start the engine and let the engine idle. Wait 20 seconds, rev up the engine 2 or 3 times, and then check that idle speed and ignition timing are within spec. If idle speed and ignition timing are not within specification, idle air volume learning will not be carried out successfully. So, once again, start engine, warm it up, check that everything is, turn off ignition switch, wait at least 10 seconds, confirm that accelerator pedal is released, turn the switch to the on position, wait 3 seconds, and then in rapid succession do full depression and release of your accelerator pedal. Then wait 7 seconds and then fully depress for 20 seconds until your check engine light stops blinking, and when it stops blinking, immediately release the accelerator pedal within 3 seconds, and then start the engine and let it idle. Rev up 2 or 3, wait 20 seconds, rev up 2 or 3 times, and make sure that everything is in spec. Okay, so we're going to start this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk while I'm doing this. So let's start with the running. We were warming up the engine, right? So it's running right now. Now we're turning off and wait at least 10 seconds. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000, 8 1000, 9 1000, 10. That's at least 10 seconds. Now we're going to turn on and wait 3 seconds. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait 7 seconds. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and punch it. Hold it for, now the check engine light is currently blinking. I don't know if you can see that. And when it stops blinking, we're supposed to lift our foot off. I just did that. And now we're turning on the engine. And we're going to let it idle. And we're going to rev it up a few times. And then we are looking at the idle, and my idle is, here, let me pull up my other torque tool here. It's connecting and thinking. Okay, connected to ECU. So right now we have about a little bit over 600 RPM, so that's perfectly acceptable. And we don't need to worry about it anymore. So that seems like we did the idle air relearning correctly. So now I wanted to show you one additional method, and I hope we can catch this here on my screen. So in the idle air volume learning procedure, the first method they point to is the Z1 Elite scan tool. It's an OBD2 scanner that they sell. It's like 130, 140 bucks, I'm not sure. And this has a special function which does the idle air volume learning. And so then you don't have to do the turning on the ignition, punch the throttle pedal and wait until the light stops blinking and all that stuff. You can just do that from the inside of a menu structure on your scan tool. I don't have the Z1 Elite scan tool. I just have a very cheaply made Elm 327 OBD2 scanner, which runs over Bluetooth. And there is an app, at least on the Play Store here on Android, which is called the CVTz50 app. If you have that on your Android phone, it will do the idle air volume learning. Go to the three dots up there, then to service functions. Then it does the whole connection to the Bluetooth scanner. Then go to engine control module. Then it will read a few things. Then it says special function active. And then once it has talked to the OBD2 port, it flips to the next page. Then you can go to the DTC, read engine diagnostic trouble codes. We will do that real quick, because one of the requirements for this idle air volume relearning or learning is that you don't have any failure codes or engine codes currently. So we're reading those real quick, and it says no engine DTC. So then we can go back. In this whole list of functions, there are going to be other things that are interesting. Don't get distracted. Somewhere in the middle of the page, it says idle air learning before starting engine temperature shall be 90 degrees. Most likely your Nissan will never reach 90 degrees. At least on mine, I have a thermostat that opens at 80 degrees, so mine will never reach 90, but that's not a hard requirement. You have to be between 70 and 100. So then you click on that. It again says, engine shall be started and warmed up to at least 80 degrees C, idle RPM and ignition timing adjustment set to 0. If you have never messed with this app, you will most likely have this all at 0 anyways. Air conditioning and other electronic devices switched off. No lights, no air conditioning, we're parked, and steering wheel is straight. And then we say yes. So then it will think about it a little bit, and then eventually it will open up this page and it verify preconditions. So we have no failure codes, temperature is at 81 degrees. Warning, temperature is out of recommended range. That's a problem, but it's still working because I cannot get my coolant temperature higher than 81 because of my low temperature thermostat. Engine speed 600 RPM, engine load no, air conditioning off, power steering no, closed throttle position yes, parking position yes, idle mode yes, idle speed adjustment 0, ignition timing adjustment 0 degrees, starting procedure, and then it goes through and then it says completed successfully. So with this little app from the Play Store on Android and a $25 OBD2 scanner that I bought on Amazon, link will be down below, you can do the idle air volume learning in this app and you don't have to do the stomping on the pedal kind of deal. The other two procedures, no, I already forgot what it was called. The other two procedures we did previously, one was the throttle valve close position learning you have to do, and the accelerator pedal release position learning you have to do in this manual procedure as they describe. Okay? So I think this is as comprehensive as I can make it. I hope this helps. I hope it's not too annoying. So yeah, looks pretty good. I just did a quick little run around the neighborhood, and then I did my 0 to 60 run on the same street that I did it yesterday. Temperatures are about the same, and we almost have a second difference between 0 and 60. I'm going to put some screenshots of the results of my scan tool on the screen right now. Yeah, so as you can see, even with this not really perfect silicone connector here, it all fits together even with a stock intake. Now I'm going to take this all off again, take this bracket off, modify it, and then put it back together. And then we can swing this out of the way. And this is the bracket I was talking about. So I made a couple little marks here. This is just where the screws fall outside of this bracket, really. So I'm going to, this is a vacuum hose here. I need to take that off. Like that. And over here as well, if we can, maybe. I probably put some Loctite on there. At least it feels like it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, here we go. There's one. Now what are we going to do here? How does this come out? Let's see if we can just wiggle it out with a flathead screwdriver. It's probably just one of those Christmas tree push thingies. I'm not sure. Oh yeah. Yeah, this will be loose but reusable, I think. All right, let's see if we can. Maybe move this up here and then hold onto the hose. So, zip, zip, piece, piece, little welding, couple nuts from the back side, just like here. Let's do it. Better. Better? So now we have that extended. Doesn't look pretty, but you know, it is what it is. We're going to put some Galvi primer on this once I'm done. Now I'm going to bolt it back on without the hoses all connected, and then I'm going to mark where the new holes need to go. So here we go. Let's put that back in there with the two spacers. All right, so just tightening this up here real quick. So now we can grab our intake tube. So I'm gonna put the air filter housing cover back on so that that at least sits in proper location. And we can keep this loose, that's no big deal. And we have the two locations here. Kind of want to make sure we have it all more or less lined up before I make my markings here. So Sharpie doesn't fit. Let's find a different pen. Okay, now we have to take it off again. But I think this is working out pretty good. There and there. Yep, that's good enough. Now we're gonna drill a nice hole and then put some nuts on from underneath with a couple tags, and then we should be done. There you go. Couple holes. I'll drill that off camera here real quick. Yeah, not here, by hand. Right, so on my drill press we just couldn't, at least not as quickly as I wanted it. So we're gonna hand drill this. Can't get to the back side of it. Nothing that a little grinder can't fix, huh? Ugh. Okay, I need to get one of those screws. One. Two. And I hope I didn't. Okay, that's gonna hold the nut in place. Okay, yeah, screw is not tight. That's good. So that comes out. And then we're gonna do the same on the other side. And then a little spritz of, yeah, now the nut is in the center. And now we just need to find the second nut that I had here a second ago. Here are the two screws. Yep, that's good. Leave it like this. So put a little spritz of galvanized or galvanic, whatever, you know, primer. And now we can just bolt this back in place. Gotta make sure you don't have any gunk in this little tube here. This is a vacuum line, but yeah, you definitely don't want to have any metal shavings in there. Maybe I'll go and blow this out real quick. No, it's fine, it's fine. So while you guys were not looking, I was just installing this harness and the two hoses again, put the clamps on. And now I literally have the two bolts in my hand that hold the air tube in place. Again, you want to make sure that you don't get any dirt. So let's stick this all back together here. Like so. Okay. Airbox back together. That's kind of the most important. And now we can see if my homemade bracket extension here fits or what, or not. Oh yeah. So that fits, and that fits. Would have been funny if I would have welded on the wrong nut, like a standard imperial size nut or something. That would have been not funny, haha, but kind of hilarious in a way. All right, so that's tight. And now we can tighten up the hose clamps and jiggle this all a little bit in place here. That looks pretty good. I think that looks all pretty good. Clamp that nicely down so that we don't get any air sucked in here. And then we're going to do the same over here. So really the only thing that's now missing is a better connector here, or coupler as they call it. Oh yeah, and then we need to still put this hose on here. The crankcase ventilation there. Oop. There. All right, that's on there. Okay, and now I find the other two bolts, and then we're done. Very good. Yeah, so that's done. I think I'm going to carry the 8mm around, just so that after this has warmed up a little bit, I can tighten the hose clamps a little more so that it really nicely seals around here. But you guys tell me, does that look pretty decent or what? Everything is how it's supposed to be, so there is absolutely nothing missing here. What do you guys think? Looks pretty good, right? See, down there's the new hose, a non-shaped hose. I guess it's cheaper. And yeah, I'm a little bummed that I couldn't use the normal hose clamps. I mean, if I would have forced it, I probably could have. But yeah, I guess this is a little easier. I'll just use regular, and here's this little adapter Rooney thing. So you guys tell me what you think. And remember the little intake spacer that's somewhere down there, yonder, that lifted all this up. And I had to make some spacers and adapters for that as well to be able to mount this all back on there. I think it's paying off. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed our little install here today. Z1 Off-Road bigger throttle body for the 4-liter V6 Frontier 2nd generation. And they said that you can't install it with a stock intake tube Obviously you can. It takes a little bit of some modification, but not too terrible.
Many hours later.
So here is my conclusion for this entire install of the Z1 off-road throttle body kit for the second generation Nissan Frontier. I felt like I didn't really create a proper conclusion. The conclusion is that when I installed the throttle body kit that Z1 Off-Road put on the market, I had a few little problems. First of all, after doing the relearn process, there are 3 steps to it, which is the throttle release, the proper close position of the throttle, and the idle air volume relearn. If you do all those 3 relearn procedures properly, you will still run into some technical issues. At least I did. When the engine is really cold and you start it up, it will really rev high during the startup. So usually the initial startup on a stock Nissan Frontier is below 2000 RPM. If you then install a larger throttle body, which obviously lets through more air, the initial cold startup will be a little over 2000 RPM, and that feels wrong initially. But don't lose hope, because if you have done all the 3 relearn processes correctly, it seems like the ECU will actually eventually figure out what to do with the data that has changed slightly. So I'm assuming that because of the larger throttle body and the larger amount of air that goes through, initially the mixture is a little out of whack, which then, I guess, in a closed loop scenario, the ECU will eventually learn by reading the oxygen sensors and also reading the mass airflow sensor that's here in the intake. So I did what Z1 Off-Road told me not to do. I installed this throttle body kit in a vehicle that has a stock airbox. And they specifically designed it for an aftermarket airbox. That's why the silicone coupler that they give you is made for an intake tube that's at least 88 millimeters in diameter. And the stock intake isn't that size. So if you want to keep your stock airbox, and a lot of guys I know, especially the guys that go off-roading, the fabric oiled filters that you have in most of those aftermarket airboxes, they're not really the best filters. They let more air through, but they will ultimately also let more dirt through. And that has been tested over and over again. You can find that online, so I'm not making this up. They are definitely not as efficient filtering. They are more efficient in letting air through. So if you are into racing on a road course, drag racing, that kind of stuff, I think those filters are fine. But if you go off-roading on dirt tracks and dusty roads in the desert with sand and whatnot, I think the stock filters are actually still the best. And they are also relatively inexpensive compared to a aftermarket filter. And then, so I installed this regardless of what Z1 Off-Road was telling me. And I modified a metal bracket up here so I could mount the intake after the fact. And I bought a different silicone coupler that I will link down below in the description if you want to do that as well. So my technical problems were, as I already mentioned, that I felt like the startup, the cold engine startup, was going way too high in RPM, made me feel uncomfortable. And on top of that, I kept getting a P0101 failure code, which led me to believe that my mass airflow sensor was at fault. But the only thing that I changed was the throttle. I didn't do anything to the mass airflow sensor. So I got failure codes and I thought, okay, mass airflow sensor is the original, so maybe it's broken now. So I bought a new one, and with a new one, it was actually worse. The failure would come on more frequently. So I would reset the failure code, then I would do the relearn procedure one more time, the throttle pedal release position, the fully closed position thing, and then also the idle air volume relearn procedure. So all 3 steps that Z1 Off-Road gives you in the install instructions, did it over and over. And every time I would get the P0101, again, I would reset it. I would do the 3 relearn procedures. Of course, the engine, for some of those relearn procedures, the engine has to be cold. For other stuff, it needs to be at operating temperature. So I did this over and over and over again, and the failure code kept coming back. But I have to mention that at the time when I installed this, we were just in the beginning of winter here, and we had temperatures in the low 30s to high 20s. So during the day was relatively warm, and then at night or early in the morning we were like in the 20s. And so I would always have really cold starts, and I would leave for work, you know, at 6:30 in the morning when the temperatures were really low, and that's usually when I got those failure codes. Driving during the day, I would never get it. And so I was a little confused. And then just recently, I drove from here to Southern California, where it's always warmer, and down there temperatures were in the 60s. And I drove around for multiple days, for 4 days, without getting a single P0101 failure code. And then I also noticed that during cold engine starts there, when the temperatures were in the mid-40s during the night, I wouldn't get the massive spikes in idle RPM either for the cold start. And so I guess that trip down there, it was about 1,000 miles that I drove in 5-6 days, kind of gave the ECU and the sensor, the mass airflow sensor, by the way, I switched back to the original because it was giving me less failures than the new one. And the oxygen sensors, I guess they all had a little staff meeting and figured out what to do. And now I'm back here at home, and we still have temperatures in the 20s at night and temperatures in the 30s during the day. I get normal engine startups, so now the RPM with a really cold engine is only about 1900 RPM for the initial spike, which is more normal than it was initially. And I don't get a P0101 failure anymore. So no more failure codes, no more high idle during cold start. And so I think if you install this throttle body kit and you get a failure code, don't run out and immediately buy a new mass airflow sensor, because that didn't fix it for me. It seems like the ECU just has to think about it a little bit. Just drive it around for a couple of weeks, get some miles on this thing, and just reset the failure code. Most guys that will install this, they will also have a OBD2 code scanner. I showed in the video that I have a OBD2 code scanner plus an app on my phone, which actually has the functionality to do the idle air volume relearning. So I didn't have to buy an expensive Z1 off-road produced scan tool to make this happen. And like I said, now after I actually drove in a little bit warmer weather and the system had a little bit time to think about it, I'm not getting failure codes anymore, and I don't have this crazy high initial spike in idle RPM anymore. So just give it time, let it think about it, and you will be fine. Don't run out and immediately buy parts. Just reset the codes a few times and maybe do the relearn process a few times. I think the first two, the throttle release and the idle close position relearning, you really only have to do once. The big one is the idle air volume relearning. That's the biggest one. Oh yeah, and also make sure that you don't accidentally create any kind of air leaks. So when you tighten up your hose clamps here on the airbox or the hose clamps on your coupler, make sure you have it seated properly and also tightened down properly. So that you are not creating a mismatch between the air that the MAF is measuring and the air that the oxygen sensors ultimately kind of extrapolate from the measurements. Yeah, so, oh yeah, another thing, if you have old cruddy crankcase ventilation tubing, while you're in here and digging around, maybe it's a good time to also look at those. I just looked at mine here. The tube that goes right onto the stock intake has a couple cracks in it. And those kind of air leaks, they are post-MAF. They might give you some wrong readings and a problem with your ECU. Make sure you don't have any of that, yeah, before you start spending money and throwing parts at the problem. So it fixed itself. It went away. The ECU had to relearn. They say, I have a hard time believing that an ECU really relearns anything or learns by itself, because it is not a AI system. It's a computer that has a program and a map from which it determines what to do with certain data. And if the readings from the MAF or from the oxygen sensors don't match what the engine is expecting, it will throw a failure code. So this whole relearning, I'm not sure. But here in this case, it worked out. Alrighty guys, this is my conclusion. I would say this definitely is worth it. It's a $300 upgrade. It will give you a little bit more peppy throttle response. And as you saw in my 0 to 60 test, I actually gained more speed. So from 10 seconds 0 to 60, I went to 9 seconds 0 to 60, which is significant if you think about it. This is a naturally aspirated V6, nothing fancy, nothing high compression, and it definitely helped. The weather conditions during those two tests were identical, the same road, pretty much the same wind conditions too. So, you know, it was tested with a cell phone app, so take it with a grain of salt. But I personally feel like it's going, you know, off the line a little better. It feels a little bit more peppy. And this is all without any electronic manipulation. So no tuning, no new map, no throttle commander or like a throttle box. It's all just by enlarging the throttle diameter. Alrighty guys, that's it. That's all I got for you today. Look down below, links for the products that I used, you know, the little coupler here and all that. And don't forget to buy yourself some nice stainless steel hose clamps. You can get them at any part store to make this all fit. And then just a little bit of manipulation of this bracket up here, drilling a couple new holes. That's all that's needed to retain your stock airbox. Alrighty guys, take care. See you in the next one.